Trades. I had an interesting one of my commission works. Most of what I do is teach, as far as blacksmithing goes. But one of the commissions I had this week that I finished up was rather interesting, and might be getting a little too much in the weeds, but just to talk about it a little bit. It was a repair to an old cast iron stove. And if anybody knows anything about cast iron, it's super brittle, cracks easy. It's not like steel. It doesn't bend. If it's gonna, you try to lock it in a vise or something, it's gonna shatter like an eggshell, right? Super brittle. And a lot of the old, really nice looking stuff was made cast iron. That's just what they did. So had this old stove where one of the braces for the cabinet up above is for the bread warmer up above. The feet was completely broken off. And originally, when I took the job, spoke to the lady, I was under the impression that it was just cracked and it needed to be repaired, which is a far easier deal. When you have a crack in something, you're just making it strong again. Either cast iron, you're usually brazing it. That's the most common way to repair it, is using brass and a torch, and you brass braze it. There's a whole process to it. But when she brought it into the shop, I actually found like there was a whole 8-inch piece of the foot that was completely missing and not existent. So a lot of challenges involved in getting that correct, which I think it came out really good. The final process. I'll send some pictures over to Tab, and we'll see if he can't put those up in the video so you can see those. The idea of it was I had to hand forge this foot out with steel, and it was kind of a mix of both, old world, new world. There was some electric welding involved. There was a lot of hand forging involved, bending the steel and that kind of stuff, to kind of recreate that. I even had to get the lathe out and do some milling, because there's slots for tabs to hold the whole bread warmer in place, and for the nuts and things to lock it down. What I ended up having to do was I had to actually end up doing a stick weld, and I used a high nickel rod, and what that did was kind of almost like electrically brazing the steel with a high nickel rod, and it's very interesting trying to attach the steel to the cast iron and make it strong in one piece. It was pretty amazing process, and it definitely worked out well. It was a 4099 rod for those who were, familiar with welding. If you have the opportunity to take a look at it and try it, I would recommend it. The only thing I would give you, some tips on it. Felt like the rod did burn really hot, so maybe if you're used to really cranking the amperage a little bit, back it off a little bit. You don't want to burn a hole in something. But yeah, 4099 stick welding. I was rather impressed with the final process, and that's the way I kind of did it, because doing some reading, there was some folks that and people that I trust said that maybe the brazing wouldn't be the best way to go when you're trying to meet the steel with the cast iron. So far it came out real good. Nice straight, nice clean, nice awesome weld, and everything came out good. So just thought I'd bring that up as one of my cool things I got to do this week. So
yeah, that's pretty awesome. Yeah, I can see it right in here that it's tailored for joining cast iron.
Yeah. Yep, and other ferrous metal.
And other ferrous metals. Yeah.
There's also, I think it's
pretty cool.
There's another one that's about half that, which has less of nickel. It mentions it in there. Yeah. A lot of times, 4099 cast iron. If you're doing some automotive applications, there's some guys out there that I know you guys like to do forebuying and that kind of stuff. This works great for that. If you're doing, modifications to like gearboxes, bushings, brake components, shackles, all that kinds of stuff. That works great, and it's a higher nickel version, so it's resistant to corrosion, and it's easier to machine or get a flap disc in there and smooth it out and clean it up after you're done.
Do you know what that means?
AWS nickel, and I don't remember what the CL is off the top of my head, but the N is the nickel content.
Okay.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. It's
Well,
a
I
high
was just
nickel
wondering
rod.
because when I see it, I thought Amazon Web Service, and I'm like,
Right.
that's not it.
No. The other rod that I thought about trying was a 4050, I think it was, or was it 4055? Off the top of my head, just had less nickel, but it's a harder rod. So this particular idea, for this particular instance, it wasn't high stress, right? It was something that could have had a not as strong joint, basically. And I just wanted to get it nice and pretty more than ultra strong. It wasn't a bushing for a car or something like that, So, yeah, pretty interesting. We'll put some of the notes to the information that we'll put some links in the comments below if you're interested in getting some more information about that. So,
yeah, it's pretty cool.
And then we'll
can't wait to get some pictures. I'll toss some pictures in the video there.
Awesome. Throw it up on the Twitter too,
about.
and all the Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff. We'll throw some pictures up on that too, so you can take a look. Yep, and we'll see you there.
All right.
And I think as far as the trades go, I think Tab's got a couple technology warnings.
Yeah, just a couple little interesting revelations in technology. One is TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. They're coming to the United States. Yeah.
It was
$100 billion.
$100 billion investment in Arizona.
Yeah. So right now, I believe they have a facility that they've been building one, but they're building another one for just packaging.
That's awesome.
And they're building, I think, 3 more chip manufacturing plants in Arizona.
Wow.
So just for info, I mean, this is a big deal because they're a supplier for AMD, Intel, Apple, NVIDIA. So that right there,
like 90% of all.
So that's
computers.
all computing,
right?
And pretty much, for PCs and laptops, basically, and that's also all graphics units.
That's amazing.
And then Qualcomm, which is Snapdragon, right? So that's cell phones for Android.
Okay. Gotcha.
MediaTek, which are an array of chips for tablets, TVs, for brands like Samsung, LG, Vizio, Amazon, Roku, Sony, Netgear, Peloton, which they can burn. Asus, Acer, Lenovo, Nokia, OnePlus, and
whole bunch.
How do you say that? Xiaomi?
Yeah.
Aomi? What is it? It's the Chinese cell phone, the largest cell phone manufacturer on the planet.
Oh, gotcha.
Iomi. Maybe that's it.
Iomi.
I think that might be it.
She? I don't know. X is she. So
is it? Xiaomi?
Xiaomi, maybe? I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't really matter.
I could ask Rock, but
Chinese cell phone.
It's their premier cell phone.
Right.
It's the largest. It's the most sold cell phone in the world.
Very cool.
Motorola as well. So and Tesla.
That's amazing.
They also they provide chips for everybody.
Huh.
So anyway, that's really good news for us because we're gonna have that right in our back door.
Right. Hopefully it'll make phones cheaper, man. TVs.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
And then another thing going on in technology is if you are a gamer or a graphic designer or if you do anything with CAD or anything like that, a designer of any type, you probably need some type of video graphics driver, dedicated GPU anyway, not video graphics driver, I'm sorry, but a graphics processing unit of some sort, a dedicated GPU to do that. You have 2 choices right now. They're NVIDIA and AMD. You do have Intel as a third choice. They're pretty new to the game, and Intel's.
Do your due diligence before you purchase something
for
like
sure.
That.
And they're pretty weak. So if you're doing something big, you're not going to be using one.
Right.
I'm focusing more on the mid to higher tier.
Gotcha.
And high tier is what I primarily look at. So anyway, for those of you who don't know, NVIDIA has had the RTX 4090 line for the last several years, and they just launched the 5000 series.
Which has been like the big dog, the champion.
The 4090 has been the big dog, on the block.
Right.
So they just launched the 5000 series.
Okay.
So they launched a 570, a 570 Ti, a 580, and a 590. So the 590 is unbelievably good.
Okay.
I mean, seriously out of control. However, it's not without issue.
Okay. There's some things to look for.
Pull up a little chart real quick so you can see what the 590 does to everything. So here's the FE. This is called Founders Edition.
Okay.
So we can see here the closest thing to it's a 4090.
Okay.
Right. It's This is Dragon's Dogma in 4K max settings.
Video game in 4K.
So in 4K. Yeah. And this is not like if you use a console, they upscale. This is not upscaled. This is 100% legitimate 4K. Right. 132 frames. That's insane.
Yeah, that's good.
Right. So if we look at the 580, which is a
step down,
$1,500 card, you're looking at 84 frames.
Wow.
This is a $2,200 card, the 5090. But you can't get them for under $5,000 right now.
Everybody's scooping them up.
And on top of that, they were catching the connectors were melting.
Oh.
4090s also had a problem with it. The 4000 series, a couple of them had a problem with this as well. So
this has been an ongoing
issue. Yeah.
So it was with the 4090. What about the 5080 didn't have that issue?
The 5080 has the issue too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm not sure if the I haven't seen the circuit board for a 5070 yet.
Okay.
I'm not in a 5070 Ti. I haven't seen that yet. I would imagine the 5070 Ti probably has a 12-pin. So basically anything with a 12-pin connector. So AMD...
It's just running too hot?
What happens is they're running two 6 pins in parallel. So there's no power balance between them.
Okay.
So if, say, 3 of 5 of those pins, so if you plug your connector in, and let's say 3 of 5 of those pins on one parallel line isn't connecting right, all of that wattage and amperage is going to be going through those last 2 pins.
Oh, I see.
So if all 4 aren't connected right, then all of that, imagine 400 watts is going through one.
Oh, gotcha.
It's just, I guess it would be shared, but between the other, whatever else is left. So basically, I had thought about it like I have a 2015 GMC, and I had a 2006 before that, and they all have the same issue. If one headlight goes out, you replace both because it redirects all the power to the other light.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So it's the same type of thing.
Right.
Where you're seeing these things try to pump all of this.
Yeah, you replace the one headlight, and then a month later, 2 weeks later, the other one blows out. Yeah.
Yeah. So, buy your headlights and sets.
Yeah. All right.
But yeah, so that's kind of what's going on, and it's cooking your power adapter.
In your opinion, do you think it's a design issue where they need to make it easier to make sure a full connection is made? Like if you had some type of device that like physically locked the connector in place?
So they recommend using, of course, their provided adapter.
Okay.
So
there is an adapter available.
Yeah, and they recommend not using these extension adapters and things that people use to clean up their systems.
All right.
However, there's way better ways to do it.
Yeah.
And there was really nothing wrong with the 8 pins that they were using, because they would be split into. They would take the 12 volts and they would split them.
Huh.
Between them, they wouldn't run parallel like that.
You think they were just thinking ahead to try to make future room for future pieces, or I don't know. And
what's interesting is AMD just launched their competitor. They don't have a top-end card anymore. AMD doesn't launch top-end cards, though they said they're not going to.
Okay.
This time, so they're sending out a middle-of-the-road card. The middle-of-the-road card, the MSRP was $549.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Okay, so we can see it actually right on this. Right here, let's see, we have the 9070 XT right there. Okay, so that's the middle of the road card.
Okay.
And if we look at the difference between these two, that's $500 difference in MSRP.
And it's almost nothing.
Yeah, and that's the old card. Now, if we look at
for people that are listening, the Sapphire, the RX 970, which was an old card, is running at 69.9 frames a second. And then the card that's $500 more, which was the 4080, is running at 72 frames
and
a second.
And the 4080 is the old card, and the 9070 is the brand new they just came out.
The brand new mid-range. I'm sorry.
Yeah, brand new mid-range, yeah. And then if we look down here, we see, let's see, where's our 5070?
Looking at this,
here we go. Here's a 5070. These right now are going for $1,000.
Wow.
At 5070.
And they're not as good.
Not anyway. And so that's the direct competitor. This is what AMD did. They came out with a direct competitor to the 5070, and they smoked it. Blew it out of the water. Great job by AMD. They also had, you could almost buy one for a second. They're all sold out everywhere now, but you could almost buy one.
So the 9070 is kind of like that Toyota truck. There's something you're looking for. It's like, it's that solid rig that is not going to win you any drag races, but it's going to get you like back and forth to the hardware store for 15 years.
Yeah, and I would say if you're playing on 1440p and you're looking for new graphics card and you do not mind AMD, I've never had a problem with them. I've used AMD processors for 15 years. I've had 2 different AMD GPUs. I've never had an issue with either one. My daughter's uses one right now that's about 7 years old. Still doesn't have an issue with it.
Wow.
No problems. There is some driver support issues that used to happen. As far as I understand, those are cleared up. Because of where this sits at 70 frames, I'm looking in a little higher end if I do go to replace.
Right.
But
for $500, man.
But that's a good deal for anything under 600. That's a fantastic deal.
Yeah.
What I was going to mention is that it's interesting because on one of the nicer cards here, I think it's the Sapphire 9070 XT. It's a very pretty card. So super nice.
If you can't see, it's got triple fans. It's got it's very well built.
Super nice.
Yeah,
right?
super nice.
It's real
got some LEDs, box body. It looks very futuristic.
Yeah, it's really nice.
It looks nice, very clean.
So, but on there, they have a 12-pin model.
Oh.
And they did the same thing as NVIDIA. So it must be something in the parameter when it comes to that connector, because that connector's going to be coming standard on.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Is it going to be like an industry standard now, something like that?
What else is interesting too is that NVIDIA, when they run their power phases on these graphics cards, they run a fuse, but they run like a 40 amp fuse because they'll run like 220s parallel. And when they do that, so if that if one of those power rails fails, the chances of it nuking your card are pretty high. Whereas when I was looking at the Sapphire, there is 220 amp fuses, but they'll control that failure. I mean, you'd have to replace the whole power stage for sure, but they would control it wouldn't hit your RAM and it wouldn't nuke your core.
Wow.
So you could get it repaired, where some of these NVIDIA cards, good luck with that.
Right.
I think there's some pictures of the
5090s. That's interesting. You always have when you're updating and you're making new prototypes.
So here's
they're all melted connectors.
Right
look at that.
So
melted
pin.
Well, that's the thing. Well, that one's melted all the way across. All the other pictures you showed before that was only one or two pins that were burned.
So
that's interesting.
That's pretty bad right there. And there's a dude, Der Bauer. He's a overclocker. World record holding overclocker that he did a video on one 4090 specifically that was cooking, and he purchased it and then tested it himself too. And
so these are only for PCs. They're not available in laptops or any of that kind of stuff. The 12 pins.
No.
Yeah.
These are just for PCs.
So if you have a laptop out there, you're pretty good. Fair warning, if you have a PC unit and it's a newer unit, you might want to pay attention and see if you've got a 12-pin connector, if you've got one of the
it would be brand new, right? The 4000 series, hopefully yours hasn't melted yet, but hopefully it won't ever melt. But the 5, it would be a real bummer to spend $5,000 on a scalped RTX 5090 and then have that happen.
Yeah, no.
I see why EVGA jumped out of the game.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway.
So fair warning. Keeping, if you got a new rig and you spend a lot of money on it, keep an eye on those 12-pin connectors, especially if you got an NVIDIA.
For sure.
Especially, be safe.
Yeah, use the right stuff, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.